think that putting our nose to the grind and working long hours, showing up before anyone else shows up, waiting until our bosses leave and everyone else leaves, and then waiting for someone to tap you on your shoulder and say, hey, Vernā, you are working so hard and doing such a great job that we promote you, does not work like that. In fact, it works against you.
So that's one way we get it wrong, right? Where we're prioritizing the wrong thing.
Yes, and we are afraid to say no because we think that, people won't like us or they'll think we're not a team player. And so I teach women how to say no.
And we've been socialized to be people pleasers. So how do you break out of it? And for example, I want a concrete sentence that you share with women about how to say no. How does it come out of your mouth? Yeah. And then how do you learn ultimately that respect is more powerful than being liked, even if it seems like everything around you is saying you need to be liked?
Yeah. So the first thing you need to remember is
welcome everyone to Sundays with Vernā. We have an incredible treat today. We're going to have an opportunity to talk to Shelmina Abji, and we're going to talk about showing your worth. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend, Shelmina. She is a gender equality advocate. She's the CEO of Show Your Worth.AI, and we're going to talk more about that. And the author of Show Your Worth, 8 Intentional Strategies for Women to Emerge as Leaders at Work. Yes. And her AI powered platform provides personalized career guidance. And with a background at IBM, so we'll hear a little bit more about Shelmina's background. She is a global keynote speaker, a philanthropist, and an angel investor, and supports multiple education initiatives in Tanzania and Uganda, which focuses on offering scholarships to young women. She's also a member of a number of advisory boards, including Girl Up and Young Women Empowered. So welcome, Shelmina. We're so happy to have you on Sundays with Vernā.
It is my absolute honor to be speaking with you, my friend. I have such deep respect and admiration for who you are and what you do.
Thank you. And it's mutual. Let me just explain that the way I met Shelmina, this happens a lot, strangely to me, is I meet people on transportation. So Shelmina and I were on a plane and we struck up a conversation. And how many years ago was that, Shelmina? I don't even know.
Oh, it had to be more than 10 years ago. I was still working and we were both traveling for work. But, there was a connection. There was an immediate connection.
Yes. And I was so impressed with what you were doing and all the things that you were saying. And I am so grateful that we did that thing that often doesn't happen when you meet people, which is that you actually stay in touch. And we've actually had opportunities to collaborate. And one of our biggest collaborations was on this amazing book, Show Your Worth, where Shelmina asked to interview me about my career. So we're going to hear a little bit about that. But before we go to that and this amazing AI opportunity that you've created, I just want to hear, and I'd love for our listeners to hear more about your background, and you're both on the professional side and on the personal side. So, tell us more about your background, where you come from, and how you got to where you are right now.
Thank you, Vernā. I was born in Tanzania. Vernā, I come from very humble beginnings. And when I say very humble beginnings, that doesn't mean we lacked food. We always had great food. We had a roof over our heads. However, we didn't have any disposable income. And my mom used to cook for people. And growing up, watching her cook for people and selling food on the streets was painful. And so because I used to get good grades in school, again, motivated by my mom, I thought that if I got a college degree, that I could lift myself and my family out of poverty. So that was the driving force behind my journey to leave home when I was 15 years old, because there was no education past 10th grade in the town in which I grew up. My parents didn't even own a phone, so there was no way for them to communicate with me. But my desire to earn that college degree so my mom wouldn't have to work so hard was so intense that I was willing to overcome any and all barriers. My first degree is from India. I got a degree in mathematics just to realize that that wasn't going to lift our family out of poverty. And that brought me to United States. At the time, United States was the only country that I knew about that offered degrees in computer science. And that really became a game changer for me. As an international student in a small university, I was very fortunate that a startup technology company hired me as a software engineer. And Vernā, the $27,000 that they offered me as my starting annual salary was more money than my parents could make in 10 years. And I thought that was it. We're never going to be poor again. And obviously, that wasn't it. Uh, I faced many internal and external barriers along the way. But, in hindsight, every challenge, every barrier was an opportunity for me to learn and actually propel me forward. So I didn't just overcome the challenges, I leveraged the challenges to become better for future success.
I love that you said it that way. I'm sure there's some people who really doubt that the barriers are going to ultimately sort of create this platform from which to really do more and better than one could ever imagine. But it does work that way if you can show your worth and if you can believe, right? Believe in yourself, believe in your family, and take advantage of certain things that present themselves, even though they may present initially as barriers. When you were telling me the $27,000 story, I thought about starting at a law firm for the summer and making the mistake of telling my father, who had worked as a firefighter and also had two other jobs forever, how much I was making as a summer associate. And my father said, that can't be true.
Wow.
We're saying, yeah, mom, dad, I don't think it's true either, but that's what they said. And he goes, oh, it must have been a mistake. Like it must have been a typo.
Wow.
He finally said, when I came back, and I was like, no, dad, it's actually true. He said to me, Shelmina, what do you know how to do that would pay you that much money? And I
Wow.
said, nothing. I don't know. I'm just going to go and they're going to teach me. So it was one of those things like, yeah, when you come from a family, and I love the way you said we just didn't have any disposable income. We ate, there was a roof, we
Yes.
even had a car, but there was nothing extra going on. And there were several jobs to support that level of existence. But yeah, that's what I thought about when you said that.
I love that. I love that. It's amazing how many parallels we have.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So you get to be you computer engineer, and then what happens?
So, software engineer. So, I was writing code.
Software.
Yes, yes, I was
Yes.
writing code. And, I was so fortunate, Vernā, this company that hired me, they were a great organization. But at the same time, I knew that within 1 year, because I was on that kind of a visa, that within 1 year, if I didn't figure out a way to make myself difficult to replace, then by law, they were required to hire someone with the right visa status. And so I knew that I had to do something that would create so much value that it would become difficult for them to replace me. However, I had a huge problem, Vernā, when I showed up to work. By now, I had been in United States for 2 years. Prior to applying for my degree in computer science at the University of Wisconsin, I had no idea that there were different ranked universities. You have to remember this was before the time of the internet. I basically, my brother's friend was visiting Tanzania. He went to University of Wisconsin in La Crosse, and I told him I want to go to the United States to get a degree in computer science. And he said, I can help you get admitted in my college. And so I said, okay. And so I ended up in a very small university. Obviously, no one came there to hire anyone. I had to go to a conference and applied to 300 different companies before one interviewed me and hired me. And so when I went to work, Vernay, first with a spring in my step, knowing I was so fortunate to be making that kind of money, knowing that I was going to put my heart and my soul into this so we never have to be poor again. And I think having that definition of success will enable you to overcome anything that gets in your way. You have to know where you want to go, who you want to become. Because if you don't, then you won't have the wherewithal to overcome and learn from all these barriers, because there are many barriers. Let's not kid ourselves. So I looked around, Vernay, and there were people like yourself from Harvard and Yale and MIT and Carnegie Mellon, master's degrees, PhDs. And I'm telling myself, Shelmina, what will you know that they don't already know? What value are you going to create and make yourself difficult to replace? And immediately started undermining my own capabilities and underestimating my worth. And what that did is it created a fear of speaking up, especially when I was in meetings with senior executives, with my boss, with my team, because I had convinced myself that there was nothing I knew that they didn't already know. And so the first thing I had to do was overcome that fear of speaking up. And I have a
Yes.
TED talk on that, because so many of us face that fear. I was afraid I might sound stupid. I was afraid that they might fire me before I even had a chance to create the value. And so that's where I started, Vernay. And that company shut down in 3.5 years. They ran out of money, as many technology startup companies do. By then, however, I had my green card, and that was my real lottery, because now my options, there were so many options, unlike when I was graduating with a 1-year visa.
Yes.
And that's when I joined IBM. And, again, I faced many internal and external barriers, but there were so many people along the way that helped me. My bosses, my mentors, my sponsors. In fact, in my book, in the chapter of intentional relationships, I quote Alex Haley, who says, "When you see a turtle on a fence post, you know it had helped getting there." Story
Oh
of
my God, I hadn't heard that before. I
Yep,
love that. That's Alex Haley, really?
yep, yep,
Roots,
yep,
yes.
yep.
Wow. So you were at IBM for how many years?
So I started in '89, but then I also left in 2008 because I didn't see a way to become a VP. And then I went back in 2011. So all in all, 20 plus years. And, became one of the highest ranking women of color at IBM, and learned a lot. The higher up I rose, the more I learned. The more I learned about what does it really take to emerge as a leader? What does it really take to climb the corporate ladder? And it's not what we think it is.
Well, tell us what it is. And by the way, you have these 8 strategies. You don't have to tell all 8 because we want people to buy the book for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
But what does it take and where do we get it wrong when we are trying to grow and develop and get promoted?
Yeah.
And you specialize in gender and specifically around women,
Yes.
removing some of the obstacles. So tell us what it takes and what do we get wrong?
So, first and foremost, we think that putting our nose to the grind and working long hours, showing up before anyone else shows up, waiting until our bosses leave and everyone else leaves, and then waiting for someone to tap you on your shoulder and say, "Hey, Vernay, you are working so hard and doing such a great job. Let me promote you," does not work like that. In fact, it works against you. I have been in so many meetings where we are discussing a promotion, and the conversation around the table is, if Vernay is so overwhelmed and working so many hours at this level of responsibility, how will she handle more responsibility? So
Yes.
that's the
Yes. I
number.
mean, I used to say this to summer associates and to all sorts of people who would be working with me. I would say, get out of the library, go home. It looks like A, you have nothing else going on in your life whatsoever, or B, you cannot manage your time very well, Or worse than that, people can ask anything of you and you have no boundaries and you have no pushback. And so people, I find, will use you until you drop dead. And you do not want that either.
You are right on the money. And I actually teach women how to say no. Because if you are not structuring your days around your highest priorities, then you are not showing your worth. You are not achieving the best possible business outcome. You see, this is not about being selfish. This is about making sure that you are intentionally allocating your attention and your energy to what matters the most to your organization.
Your organization. Right.
Right.
So
And so,
that's one way we get it wrong, right? Where
ex-
we're prioritizing the wrong thing.
yes. And we are afraid to say no because we think that, people won't like us or they'll think we're not a team player. And so I teach women how to say no. When I first became a sales rep, I was very fortunate to have a boss that was my mentor, my coach, and he taught me. He taught me how to qualify deals, how to work on the deals that would maximize my chances of success. And he told me something that became a game changer. Because when I went to tell him that I can't say no to all these people, I'm going to need to work with them in the future. What if they don't like me? What if they don't think that I'm a team player? He said, IBM didn't hire you to win a popularity contest. We hired you to achieve business outcomes. Shelmina, aspire to be respected, not to be liked.
Okay, so now this is a big deal, right? Because we do know that there is this way in which women move ahead, or they have to manage this whole being liked versus being respected. And it's unfair, but it's certainly something that men don't necessarily have to manage, but women do. And we've been socialized to be people pleasers. So how do you break out of it? And for example, I want a concrete sentence that you share with women about how to say no.
Yeah.
How does it come out of your mouth?
Yeah.
And then how do you learn ultimately that respect is more powerful than being liked, even if it seems like everything around you is saying you need to be liked?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing you need to remember is you must be kind and firm.
Kind and firm.
Kind to the
Okay.
person you are dealing with. So many of us are misled. No is a full sentence. You say no in a confrontational way, and
Right.
you are going to ruin your brand and your chances of getting ahead in that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so you must be kind to the person and you should be firm on your decision if it's the right decision. So, what I
Mhm.
teach women is have a point of view. Have a point of view of why you are working on something that is a higher priority for the business. Remember, this is not about you. You are hired to achieve business outcomes. And if you are working on strategic priorities that will contribute more value and move you closer to achieving greater business outcomes, you should be able to explain that to people and also have an open mind. So you cannot have your ego tied to this decision that you've already made. You have an open mind because chances are that when you make that decision about working on a certain priority and saying no to their priority, you might not have considered some aspects of it. And with new information, be open to changing your decision. And so when you go in being kind, having a point of view, and having an open mind, that if you learn something that you didn't know before, you will change your mind. Then not only will you deepen your relationship with the person whom you're actually saying no, you will also let them know that you don't waste your time working on opportunities and tasks that are not aligned with the most strategic priorities of your business. So people won't be giving you stuff. Like you said, you were telling your interns, if you just take everything on, they will put stuff on you. So you create a brand for yourself that says, Vernā only works on the most strategic priorities and focuses her attention and her energy on what matters the most. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So in a nutshell, this becomes an opportunity actually to deepen a relationship, to build a better brand, and to earn respect.
So I love this because it's nuanced, right? And I think that sometimes women get this thing that I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do this and I'm going to say that and whatever. And you're like, calm down.
Yeah. Calm down.
Right? Because you're still learning. And most of the time, you don't have all the context anyway. But a point of view is very helpful because it's telling the person that you've been thinking through this and that you have a point of view. But you also could change, as you said, based on more information. Okay, so this is great. And yet I keep getting asked, because we know this from studies, to order the lunch, to clean up the conference room, to take the notes, and other housekeeping tasks. And the women seem to be asked this, and the men are not being asked this. How do I kindly say
Yeah.
no, thank you?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say thank you. Well, first of all, Vernā, I must tell you that I have been very fortunate to be working in companies like IBM and ETA, where no one ever asked me to get everybody knows who you are and what your role is, and there are people that bring coffees and lunches and things. Software engineers don't do that, sales reps don't do that, systems engineers don't do that, sales leaders don't do that. Those are my roles that I've had. However, I have mentored women who, especially when they're new in the organization and people don't know who they are, then they will be asked. And I again say, be kind and firm and say, I have a meeting to go to. I'm sure someone else will take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Small sentences. Don't get upset. What I tell people is, the moment you get angry, first of all, you have to give people positive intent and the benefit of the doubt. Because I truly believe most people they just don't know better. They're ignorant. And so you don't want to give your power away to them by getting upset at them. But at the same time, you don't want to give your power away and start being all nice and just not know where you're going and what you're doing. You really have to define your own agenda. You need to know who you are, what you're doing, what your role is, what your strategic priorities are. And then when you show up with that energy. You show up with that energy in the room where no one's going to mess with you.
The energy point is so well taken, because when people are talking to me about they need mentors and they need sponsors, I try to say to them as nicely as possible, people are attracted to attractive people. Do you know what I mean? I
I
mean,
know exactly what you mean.
people, like, if you're sending the energy of, like, either you're mad or you've got an axe to grind or you know everything. There's so many sort of energies that don't attract help.
Yes.
And then there is the energy that is, you're excited about something.
Yes.
You have a great idea about something. You are impressed with how someone has approached work. You're curious. Like,
Yes.
that's the kind of energy that leaders are attracted to and
Yes.
want to invest in.
Yes. And I always tell women the power of being grateful and ambitious.
I love that. Grateful and
And
ambitious. Tell us more.
So because that sense of gratitude really fills you up with positive energy. But if you're not careful, you can be very content. That gratitude can equate to contentment, which it did for me, Vernā, for so many years. For so many years, I was so grateful. Like when I was making $40,000 a year and being able to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, I thought I was so successful because of my frame of reference.
Yes.
Inadvertently, I was settling for small success. I did not know that, but I just went in every day. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm going to contribute value at my maximum capacity. I was doing a lot of right things, but I wasn't letting people know that I am ambitious. And these are not
Yes.
mutually exclusive.
No.
It's a great combination. So you be grateful for what you are, what you have, and be ambitious for what your potential is. Let them know you want to be more, you want to do more.
Wow. Okay. So that brings me to the book, because when you approached me to find out more about my career and the decisions that I'd made and the way that I had moved throughout the profession, I told you a story that you actually put as the first chapter in your book,
Yes.
which I appreciate and so grateful for, where I also really told a story about early on leaving what I had trained to be an attorney, the practice of law. And when you asked me about why I did that, I explained that it was unlike your situation in the sense that I wasn't looking for a promotion. It was more that I was looking for an alignment
Yes.
of who I was and what I believed in, and then ultimately what I was spending most of my time doing, or I wanted most of my time in my profession to align more closely with my values. And so I made a decision very early on with still an enormous amount of debt from law school to leave the law and to find a different way of making a contribution. We all know that that turned out very well for me, but it was scary at the time. And I wondered if you could share like why you decided to put that at the front end of the book, Show Your
Yes.
Worth.
Yes. First of all, what you shared with me was so profound. And it was also something I had seen with other women. And here's the thing, I always tell people that if you don't intentionally define what success means to you, personally and professionally, then it will be defined by someone else. And even if you achieve that, it's going to ring hollow. And so to define success intentionally is the first chapter of the book. And I ask women to do just two things. One is to aim high, because so many of us, including me, when we don't see senior leaders that look like us, that speak like us, that we relate with, that we resonate with, we don't see ourselves in those roles. And so we don't aspire for those roles. You know, Vernā, it took me 10 years in my career to ask for my first promotion. 10 years. And the moment I sat on the other side of the table and I started understanding what really matters when promotions are given, every 2 years, I either got promoted or I moved into a position that increased my chances of getting promoted. So the first thing I ask women to do is to aim high, shoot for the stars. And even if you land on the moon, you've succeeded, right? Push yourself outside your comfort zone. Aim high, because so many of us settle for incremental success and we don't strive for transformational success. So do that, number one. Number two, make sure whatever it is that you're doing, it's aligned with your values. And that's why your story is so relatable to so many women. You have no idea how many women come to me and they have changed jobs because they are exhausted doing something that is not aligned with their values. And when you are exhausted, you can't show your worth.
So true, so true. And you know, the researchers of the, I think it was called the confidence gap, talked about how women often don't aim. I love this idea of transformational kind of success because they've never done it before or they don't have the experience. And when you're at the table with all the decision makers and now you're a decision maker, you realize that a lot of people are getting to positions, and not because they've already done it, but because they've shown a certain kind of competence and commitment and hard work and, you know, a whole host of really important characteristics. But it's not because they've had this experience or they're perfect at something. And once you realize that, you're like, wait a minute, I might as well put my name on the table as well, right?
Exactly. In fact, I take it one step further. If you only apply to roles that you know you can do, you're shortchanging yourself. You
Want to
must,
say that again, Shelmina.
if you only apply to roles that you know you can do, you are shortchanging your potential and your success. You must, and so I have an entire chapter called Intentional Growth. You must apply for roles that will push you to the edge of your competence, that will teach you new competences, because in the future, your contribution to your organization is directly proportionate to your competence and your confidence. And in order for you to grow your competence, you must take on roles that will teach you more competence. The thing is, you have to take a chance on yourself, because the world takes you at your own estimate. If you don't take a chance on yourself, you cannot expect anyone else to take a chance on yourself. So you have to show up and say, I would like to apply for these roles, and I know that I will learn how to do it. Because I tell you what, almost every role anyone takes, they have not done it before. And no one else has done it either. Right? So you just need to have that trust in yourself that I can figure things out. That sentence, I can figure things out, is gold. That kind of trust, and that creates this energy. You are having a conversation with your boss, and you can show them your past success, which is very, very important. But you also have to show them that you trust yourself to figure things out.
Oh, I love that illustration. I love that illustration. So the other thing I'm really excited about talking to you about is this app that you've created and this use of AI, and how you are like spreading the message and getting more people on board, especially like understanding concretely what it is that they can do to enhance their career. So will you tell us more about the app and what it does and how you got to it, and how's it going?
Yeah. So let me first start with how I got to it. So I'm going to take you back to Alex Haley, who said, when you see a turtle on the ledge, on the fence post, it had help getting there. So about 10 years ago, Vernā, when I was thinking about my definition of success, there was moving ahead in my career did not have the same level of depth and meaning. I had taken care of my family. I had taken care of my children's education, my retirement, and I wanted to do something to pay forward. I felt that the universe and so many people had given me all these opportunities to achieve the kind of success I did, especially based on where I came from, where I started. And I wanted to pay forward. And so initially I left and I started mentoring hundreds of women all over the world. And I learned that they were struggling with the same internal and external barriers that I was struggling with 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I also learned that the essence of our struggles is the same, whether you're in Nairobi, Kenya, or in Seattle, Washington. The forms appear different, but the essence of our struggles are the same. Whenever I had to say no to someone to mentor, it used to keep me awake at night. It would hurt me in my gut, because I knew that if people didn't say yes to mentoring me and guiding me, I wouldn't have achieved my success. And that person could be a potential Shelmina, and I am saying no to her. And so I thought, if I wrote a book, then my book can become their mentor. My book will teach them how they can succeed in their career. And so I wrote the book. And as women started reading the book, and as women started hearing me speak, they would come to me, especially immigrants, refugees, single mothers, women in tech, working mothers. They would come to me and say, I have never read a book like yours before. I relate to your journey. I am you, and I want you to please give me some personalized guidance, because I have personal situations that I want to talk to you about. And so I started thinking, how can I make myself more accessible to all these women? And now the requests are coming in thousands. And so it would be impossible. Again, I can't scale myself. And just then, Open announced ChatGPT, artificial intelligence came along, and I thought, this is the perfect opportunity for me to build a platform, which my neighbor actually built. And so I can make myself accessible 24/7 in 100 languages, wherever you are. I'm in your pocket, in your purse, on your way to work, on your way back, when you're in a difficult situation. Anytime you have any question, you can ask me, and I am there for you.
Okay, so explain to me how it works. Is it that the AI is taking the book and like figuring out the answers based on that information? All right, tell me, 'cause, You
But
tell me.
you're hitting the nail on the head.
Okay.
The content of the book is the front and center of Show Your Worth.AI. And that's why I call it Show Your Worth.AI, because Show Your Worth has built such an incredible brand and people understand what it is. And so it's centered around the contents of the book. But the beauty of this is, my book can only have 75,000 words,
Yeah.
but I can continue to add new content, and so there will be a lot more that is available to users of Show Your Worth.ai than what I was able to add in the book. But it is centered around,
Yeah.
and here's the other thing, right? When Joseph Sirosh, who built this platform for me, basically the AI will synthesize the entire book, and it will tell you it will give you the answer to your question by synthesizing the entire book. However, the way it was giving the answers, we had to train it to take on my personality.
Okay.
So you feel like you're having a conversation with me with the content from the book and other content that I add frequently.
I love it. And, of course, there are a lot of people very concerned, rightly so, about the downside of AI, but this is such a beautiful example of what we can do that is good and right and is going to be so helpful, especially to people who, Shamina, when you've had the gift of being mentored and being sponsored, sometimes you forget how many people don't have that access and don't have that information or don't have those relationships. And yes, they can work on doing more and getting more relationships, but this idea that you have is really closing that gap for people. So many young people, and I know you know this, they're reaching out. Could you mentor me? Could you help me? I don't know where to go. I don't even know how to approach this problem. I have this idea, but I need guidance, right? And to have the technology and the book and the information to give to people widely is so powerful.
I can't even begin to tell you how grateful I am to have this opportunity, because I know how my life changed because I had people guiding me, because I had mentors, because I had sponsors. And Vernā, it's not just young women. I mentor a lot of even middle management women who have mentors. And anyone that chooses to be a mentor has good intention. They are trying to help you, but one can only mentor based on one's capacity. And if you don't have the right mentors, you might be going for incremental success as opposed to transformational success, because perhaps they themselves settled for incremental success.
You said that all around the world, you have discovered that the the barriers or the obstacles that women face no matter where they are, where they're from, or what their background is, the essence of it is the same. And you didn't say though what that essence is. So I want to hear what have you understood that essence to be that impacts women all over the world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a combination of both, right? It's the workplace environment, but it's also the way we are wired. When we are young, we want to be liked, we want to be included, we will say yes to everything, we take care of everybody else and not take care of ourselves. We celebrate everybody else, but we don't celebrate ourselves. And we are so harsh with ourselves. We beat ourselves up for the smallest mistake that we made, and we rarely celebrate ourselves for the wins. And so I ask women to rewire. So I ask women to have a weekly reflection time every week. And yes, you want to course correct, yes, you want to learn from your past week, but very quickly look at what you did right, celebrate yourself, because then you start feeling successful, and then success will breed more success. And also, when you celebrate yourself, you will energize yourself to pursue success next week. When you beat yourself up, you get exhausted, you get depleted. And so it shows up in different ways, but this is how women show up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that is a big thing. It is a combination. Yes, we don't have the greatest structures in some places and the greatest workplaces that are supportive, but there's also a thing inside of us that we do have control over.
Yes.
And so we have to really celebrate ourselves and know that we're perfect. Not that we're perfect in the way that we've been taught about perfection, but we are perfectly designed for the thing for which we were designed to do, right?
You
Like we
know,
have what it takes, and we have to really take care of ourselves to actually recognize, realize, and experience that. And that's why I think it's so important that you've created a community of sorts with this book and with this and with this technology, this app, right? Because we need each other. It's hard to do these things by ourselves. We need people to testify and be and actually be models. We need to see people and see what they've done. And you've been able to do that in many ways through this book and through this app and through your keynotes and your speeches. And again, I think so much of it is that you infuse it with enthusiasm and love and generosity. So thank you so much for contributing to this powerful community that we all need in order to fulfill what we were made to be.
uh, I agree. And, I'd like to make 2 points. One is I always tell women, seek progress. There's this elusive definition of perfection. Just you seek progress. If you are better today than you were yesterday, you're perfect.
I love that.
And then secondly, I have actually coined a term. And when we talk about women all over the world, we have a tendency to react to a negative stimulus and react negatively. And so I have coined a term. The way you keep your power at all times is by exercising what I call your power quotient. And your power quotient, just like your IQ and EQ, we each have a power quotient. And your power quotient is your ability to intentionally pick an empowering response to a disempowering stimulus.
Whoa. I like that. That's real power to choose that reaction. I love that.
And
This is
we
your
all
power quotient, everybody.
Yes. And we all have that power. We just unknowingly give it away to people and situations by reacting to them. We need to understand that people and situations are not always going to be the way we want them to be, but we also need to understand that they don't define us. Our response defines us. And so if we intentionally pick an empowering response that keeps you moving closer to your definition of success by showing your worth in every interaction, you are
So
your full power.
I
Ev-
love it. So we've got progress. As long as you're making progress, it's good. You're moving. And we also find that power within you as you respond to sometimes disempowering situations. You can always have the power of how you respond. Thank you so much, Shelmina. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Vernā. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, likewise.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow me at Vernā Myers on Instagram and Twitter. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify and Apple Music. Subscribe to my channel and share this episode with someone who is going to join us in this space. Make sure to visit my website for DEI resources and online learning courses at vernamyers.com, and make sure you sign up for my newsletter to stay in touch with me. Thank you again for listening, and see you next time for more Sundays with Vernā.